All right, shocking news. We eat chocolate. We usually like to keep it pretty dark, greater than 85%, but sometimes I'll eat 70%. These are some of our favorite brands. Sorry about that. We really do like our chocolate. Green and black is our go-to. You can get it everywhere. This alter ego is pretty tasty. And then I just came across these righteously raw, which are pretty good. They've got some agave in it, but overall pretty good product, and they come in these little single sizes. So check out the ingredients. There's a lot of fillers out there. Number one is soy lectin. So that's one of the reasons that we like these products. They're made of just stuff that chocolate is supposed to be made of. You can see you've got cocoa, you've got sugar, you've got butter, you've got extract, and that's it. So here's the key. Why so high of a chocolate content or cocoa content? One, the higher the cocoa content, the more it drives the sugar down. You'll see when we look at the 70%. However, that's where the benefits are. That's where the good stuff is. And also, good luck overindulging on dark chocolate. It just kind of gets too bitter after a while, and it's really hard to do. Here's a tip. If you still overindulge, store your chocolate in the freezer. Makes it just a little bit harder to eat and slows you down just that much more. Welcome back, everybody. We're here again talking about calories. We started with part 1, and we really felt it was necessary to follow up with a part 2 to talk a little bit more about what calories are, about macronutrients, micronutrients, and how they help you become the best version of you. So let's go back. I know there's an analogy that you like to share about calories and weight. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and calories are just a weird measurement in general, which is why I think we're going to do part 2, maybe even a part 3 or whatever, because there's a lot of information to just kind of go on. What does this calorie number mean? Because what a lot of people say, they'll go to their nutritionist or whatever, and they'll say, my nutritionist says I need to eat 2,000 calories per day to maintain, or 1,800 to lose, or 2,100 to gain. So they just come up with these broad numbers, and people think if they stick with these numbers, they're good. The problem with what is 2,000 calories? What is that? I mean, how much protein did that contain? How much carbs? How much sugar? How much fat did you eat? I mean, those are 4 factors, very easily measurable factors. I'm sure there's other things that make up calories that we don't even really talk about, but here's 4 things. So
the 4 macronutrients.
The 4 macronutrients that can get you to that 2,000 calorie number. It could be all sugar. It could be a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a good spread, good balance. So again, that's kind of the problem with that 2,000 calorie number.
And how does that analogy work with weight?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. So, yeah, so basically the calorie number is made up of those 4, the 4 macronutrients. Well, weight, because the big thing with weight is people like to say, I want to weigh 135 pounds, or I want to weigh 150 or 180. They just throw out these numbers. But again, there's at least 4 major things that make up your body weight: the amount of fat on your body, the amount of muscle, your bone density, and your hydration level. So these are, the 4 major factors. Of course, there's other things as well too, but 4 major things. And if you get to your weight and you have high levels of fat but low levels of muscle, and your bones are rail thin, I'm not sure you being at that weight is actually healthy. So just like there's numerous ways to reach the calorie number, there's numerous ways to reach the weight number.
Okay. So what should we be tracking? Is there a metric, or is there a special number that we should be looking at? I mean, we talked a little bit last time about carbohydrates. Is that the be all and end all?
I mean, not really. We kind of like to track a little bit of carbohydrates in our proteins, but at the end of the day, I mean, the goal is real food. Eat real food. Because I feel like this is another way people can kind of defeat, this is where the flaw in the calories in minus calories out comes in, is people feel if they get under their calorie number, then they've won for the day. And that doesn't matter how they got there. They could eat 25 Oreos and that got them under 2,000 calories. And according to that science, they're going to lose weight for the day. So,
opposed if they had eaten 3,000 calories worth of spinach.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So you can see how crazy that is. And so at the end of the day, I mean, find food that you can find in nature. Hopefully it doesn't come in a box. Hopefully it doesn't come in a bunch of crazy packaging. You know, you can never go wrong with meats and veggies and fruits and just whole food, and let your body kind of take care of itself. It'll tell you when it's full. It'll tell you when it's hungry. And I think, you know, we can never state that enough of how important that is just eat real food.
So to kind of back up that comment that Garett made about overeating and eating real food, in that book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, that we refer to a lot, Gary Taubes references a lot of overfeeding studies that they have done. What they do is they take individuals and they try to feed them more than they can consume. We're talking 10,000 calories in a sitting. And the summary of the studies that were done is this is possible on whole grains. This is possible eating bread and those types of foods, but it is impossible. People walked away, refused to finish the study eating meat. So they found they could not overeat on those real foods. So I'm going to take another step into kind of what's going on in mainstream media. There's a lot of rhetoric out there about what we're supposed to eat. Fortunately, some people in mainstream media are seeing the light to say that, hey, maybe this whole low-fat, low-calorie, high-carb diet isn't the way to go, and we're actually doing more damage than good. But specifically, I want to bring your attention to two articles that are out there that are kind of floating around. One, semi-starvation diets. Diets in which folks are always hungry, they're eating less than 1,200 calories a day, are said to increase lifespan. Is that true?
No.
So you're gonna just go flying all in the face of all the science?
Well, so one of the things I heard about those particular studies is these people were eating bad quality food to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, or
the control group was, right?
Yeah, the group that was the control group that was eating the first so they both groups ate the same diet. Okay. I guess let me start back. So you had your overfed or your fed group and your underfed group. They both ate the same diet, mm-hmm. which was comprised of just crap, so to speak, you know, carbs and sugar and not healthy by any means. And so one of the things that they're saying why they're getting some of these life extension studies or people are extending their life is because they're actually just eating less of the bad food.
So it's basically like if you were taking poison and all of a sudden you took half of that poison.
Yeah, you're probably going to live a lot longer than the person who's eating a lot more poison.
And there is some worth in under eating on an irregular period on a couple days, and we've talked about that with Meatless Monday, and we plan to talk about that a little bit more later. So don't automatically assume that, you know, never going hungry for a day is not a bad thing. So the other thing that I want to talk about is sugar. Just got done reading an article saying that they're considering changing our food labels again because of the amount of hidden sugar that manufacturers are able to get into our food. Can you talk about the role of sugar, added sugar, real sugar, natural sugar in our diet, and what quantity is okay?
I would say that the amount of quantity that's okay is very, very low. There's so many. A lot of things contain natural sugars, fruits, and even some vegetables. So sugar is something that you just do not need to eat a whole lot of. And in fact, do you know what the recommended
I don't know if there is a set recommended allowance right now. I mean, maybe that's the whole point of them wanting to change the food labels.
Yeah.
So they can say, hey, you should only eat so many grams of sugar a day, but I'm sure that's going to be a fight to figure out what the right number is.
Yeah, as far as added sugar goes, there's really, unless you're running a marathon and you're doing Ironman races and you're actually on the course and you're eating these gels for energy, there's for the average person who's just working out and trying to eat healthy and trying to live right, like there's just very little reason you should ever need.
So why is sugar so bad? What's the chemistry that's going on in our body?
Yeah, I don't know all the chemistry, but I mean, one of the things is it spikes insulin. It increases, sugar is deadly in our blood, which is why we release insulin. And when we basically, if we always have a lot of sugar in our diet, our insulin system gets overtaxed, overworked, and eventually it breaks down or it stops working altogether. And that's when diabetes happens, and that's when you have a hard time removing that sugar out of your blood. So that's one of the problems, is it spikes insulin. Two, I've heard that cancer cells feed off of insulin. So cancer cells have insulin receptors. So every time you are eating sugar, you're spiking your insulin to help remove sugar out of your blood. And oh, by the way, also giving some cancer cells some of their preferred fuel at the same source. So cancer cells seem to indirectly live off of sugar and the chemicals that it does to your body.
So why do you think human beings like sugar so much if it's not really that good for us?
Well, I mean, it's super, super sweet and it tastes really good. And what I think, what I believe, and kind of what I've heard is, in nature, you go back to our prehistoric ancestors, and they were walking and came across some fruit. This sweetness in the fruit, there were two things that I've heard. One, that we related that to a bunch of calories. Again, when you're not coming across these things, you think of the marathon runner or the triathlon person I talked about. If you're going long distance, sugar can definitely be a nice little energy boost. And so I think for our early ancestors coming across some fruit, stuff like that, that allowed them to get some much needed energy. And then two, the other theory I've heard is the plain survival theory of most seeds are inside the fruit, so you actually ingest them. So the sweetness, you would ingest these things and then you would go and continue to walk and poop later on, and that's how a lot of fruits would spread their seeds, was actually through human or animal ingestion. So they wanted these fruits to be sweet because that would make humans attracted to them. So basically what I think happened is this is in our DNA, and then now we have food scientists who have removed sugar. I mean, that's the thing. That's the whole point of added sugar. Mm-hmm. That's why added sugar is bad, because sugar in the real natural sense, not that I'm not saying it's good. If you eat sugar, even in fruit, it's surrounded by vitamins and nutrients and fiber and cellulose and all kinds of stuff. Added sugar is removing all of that good stuff, and it's just making these quantities a lot higher than we would ever expect to eat.
And then one of the things too about fruit is it's very seasonal, the product. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get it, especially up where we live, you're not going to get it in the middle of winter. And then to take it a step further, we have, maybe not genetically modified, but we have selectively bred the apples and the oranges and the cherries to be the most succulent, sweetest pieces of fruit we can get our hands on. And as a result, we have sugar-laden fruit hundreds of years later than from when we started domesticating these plants to serve us. So there's also that you know, the apple, the cherry, the berries that we pick are not the same ones that necessarily our ancestors picked. So we also have to be aware that while it might seem natural and it might be packaged like it's coming from Mother Nature, we've had a hand in where that apple has gone through its lifespan.
Yeah, technically And trust me, I'm not for GMOs, but if you want to be 100% scientific about it, every food we eat is a GMO because we've been modifying and selecting seeds forever.
Okay, so if we were going to give our listeners a couple just takeaways from calories, what things to remember, we'd say first, one, eat real foods, right?
Yep.
A leftover from last ones is watch those carbohydrates. Try to keep those to a minimum. And preferred source of carbohydrates are going to be your vegetables, limited fruit, and then avoid all grains and gluten. Okay? And then probably the last one is if you are going to have something sweet, let's stick to those real fruits and try to get them seasonally, maybe at your local farmer market.
Yeah. And I would just on top of that, just most important thing is stay away from sugar, the added sugar. I mean, that should always be your goal and should always be your challenge. Stay away from that sugar.
So with that, have a great day.
So if you like this content, please share it with your friends. And of course, we are always open to feedback and or any questions. So thank you. And once again, good luck on this 21-day journey.